Welcome to the space of spiritual research. Today I would like to talk about our galactic history, and this information comes from the AKASHIC Records, and it comes from the higher realms, the higher chakras, in specific from the 8th chakra. And a lot of this information comes with a lot of pain and a lot of contrast, but there is definitely a lot of beautiful information that I would like to share. So before I dive in, I want to say thank you for everyone that sent in question, and a lot of the answers from your questions were answered, and there will be in a separate video. Today the question that I want to answer is about our galactic history and where do we come from. Do you guys have any idea where we come from? Well, the Akashic Records has a lot of information about our galactic history. When I first came into this world, ever since a little kid, I always had this question about where do we come from? Who created God? Okay? And a lot of my questions were to older people, and my questions were more like, who made us? You know, like, why are we here? And a lot of the answers that I would get were, God. You know, God created us. And one of my questions was, if God exists, who created God? So pretty much all those questions led me to a place of wanting to know more. I wanted to know more about where do we come from, why are we here, why are humans the way they are, and what's the purpose of life. And after diving into many years of spiritual research and becoming more mature about my own consciousness and awareness, I realized, and it resonated deeply within myself, that source energy created us. It created this big project. So the understanding that source energy created us and it wanted to know itself through us. We are an extension of source energy, and we are another eye for source. Our experience is serving source to know itself over and over, and source is always expanding, just like this universe is constantly expanding into infinity. Now, when we dive into the beginning of times, for the ones that are familiar with the Akashic Records, you guys already know how this works. The ones that are not familiar with the Akashic Records are pretty much archives of that blueprint. It holds all the information, all the emotions, all the feelings, everything you can possibly imagine of the beginning of time. And when we diving into source energy is so intelligent, so beyond. The Akashic Records had to be created in order to keep all that information. Now, one of my beautiful Akashic Records teachers, her name is Devi Solaris, and she's been doing a lot of Akashic Records readings, and a lot of practice has been going through this for many years. And in many of her sessions, while reading the records and looking deeply into the galactic history of where we come from, she found out that in the beginning of time, pretty much humans were created through the Lyra consciousness in Lyra. So pretty much they were two types of humans that were created. There was the ones that were created in Lyra, and there were the ones that were created in Vega. So these two types of humans, one of them represented more of that father consciousness, and the other one represented more of that feminine divine consciousness. Now, so pretty much in the beginning of time, in the Milky Way, when source energy decided to split itself and descend into physicality, originally life was going to be created in the Andromeda galaxy, but the Andromeda galaxy was such in a high vibration that then pretty much the Milky Way was chosen, and Lyra was picked to be the center in the beginning of that big project. But keep in mind that this is just in this universe. There is the multiverse, and in many universes this project has been happening over and over. The project of descending from source into physicality. So pretty much the project ended in another universe, and it started in this universe again, and Lyra was picked to be. So Lyra was picked pretty much because it was inhabitable and it had really rich resources. Now, the co-creators came into Lyra from another universe, and we know them now as the feline beings. The feline race created on Lyra the human race, and the human race wasn't only just one race. There was two types of humans. There was the fatherly consciousness humans, and there were the humans that were more from a perspective of feminine divine consciousness. Now, the overseas that were making sure this project was happening in divine light and it was going accordingly were the Arcturians. So the two human races were Mother Goddess consciousness and Father God consciousness. So the Mother consciousness group were called the Vegas, from the star of Vega, which is the largest star in Lyra. So Vega is the biggest star system in the constellation of Lyra. So the Vega people were more inspired and more rooted from a feminine divine energy. So they were inclined more into a spiritual consciousness. So the Vega people were blue skinned, and when we look into Earth into the Hindu gods, we see a lot of confirmation when it comes to some of the gods that were blue skinned. So keep in mind that these blue humans were highly advanced. They were in another level of consciousness. They were highly spiritual. They were really advanced humans, the ones from Vega, the blue skinned humans. And so the other Father God consciousness type of humans lived in all the other stars in Lyra, and they pretty much look like white skinned. You can think of a Caucasian race type of humans. So the white Lyrans pretty much focused on farming in more of an action father god consciousness perspective. Now, they all lived in peace and harmony for thousands of years. They didn't necessarily understood lies, deception, or chaos or violence. They didn't understand any of that. So they pretty much lived in peace, like I said, in harmony, and they probably thought that it was going to be like that forever. But this is where the story turns a little bit dark. Now, the polarity aspect of the story is pretty much that in another universe, a group of what we know of the reptilians were kicked out of that universe because they were creating a lot of chaos and colonizing and creating a lot of division. So they were pretty much kicked out from the universe by the avian beings, and they somehow end up in this universe through a portal or however they end up in here, and they pretty much end up in the star of Draco. Now, there are many types of Draconians. There's definitely a hierarchy. There is, in the hierarchy, the good ones. Are the dragons, and they're very spiritual beings, really spiritual beings, really powerful beings. And then under that we have the war-like reptilians, and then another group of reptilians.
Size of the humans at one time, and that was true in Atlantis.
Alright, let me back up a little bit. So a lot of the confirmations that I see on Earth are, like I said earlier, the Hindu gods, right? And then in a lot of past life regressions, when the information was being observed in Atlantis, we see a lot of blue-skinned people, white-skinned people, even reddish-skinned people. So that's another confirmation for sure. In ancient Egypt, we see the avian beings. In ancient Egypt, we see the feline beings. So that's pretty much another confirmation for our galactic history here on Earth. Now moving forward, the Draconians were, aka the reptilians, were kicked out from this alternate universe. The avians were the ones that kicked them out, and in these systems, these planets, there was a lot of resources in this alternate universe, pretty much. And when the reptilians were kicked out into our universe, into Draco, then there weren't much resources. So pretty much the reptilians started looking around, and you know, that's the division where it started from. So Draco had really limited resources, and the reptilians started to look around, and then they saw Lyra. They saw how Lyra had abundant of resources, and so the reptilians were more of a race of service to self, and they wanted to conquer other systems, other stars, for more resources. There's a parallel here pretty much on Earth with our government and a lot of reptilians controlling the Earth. So if we stop for a moment and we think how the whole biblical story of Adam and Eve was just an allegorical story that represented the deception of what really happened in Lyra, between Lyra and the Draconians. The ending of that paradise. So the Draconians, reptilians, pretty much made contact with the Lyrans, and they offer them a trade deal. They offer them all this technology for their natural resources. So that's pretty much how the deception started. So long story short, the Draconians made contact with the Lyrans, and they offer them the deal of technology. And for the Lyrans, this seems like a really good offer, you know, new technology. And keep in mind that the Lyrans didn't necessarily expect something bad to happen, because you gotta understand that they were living in this energy where peace and harmony was pretty much their main lifestyle. You know, they weren't scared of like being colonized. You know, they were very spiritual beings, and they didn't necessarily understand chaos, division, because it never happened. We're talking about the beginning of times. So they let them in, and then the Draconians started to. So while the deal was happening, the Lyrans invited the Draconians into their planets, and that's when the Draconians took the opportunity to look around into the weak points and scope around, and that's when the Draconians realized that it was going to be so easy for them to ambush them and take over their entire system and many other star systems. So when we try to understand that the Lyrans didn't even have an army, or they probably had really few weapons to, or probably they didn't even have any weapons whatsoever. That was such an easy deal for the Draconians to take over. Now, a little bit more about the Draconians. So when we look into the Draconians, there is definitely a hierarchy, and the hierarchy goes like, there is the dragons, which are more of a neutral race. They're known to be very spiritual and powerful psychic beings. Another confirmation in Asia, in China, we see a lot of dragons in the past. So the dragons didn't get involved into the war. Now, under the dragons, there is the reptilians, the warlike reptilians. Those are the ones that created the whole war between the Lyra and the reptilians. So the warrior-like reptilians are the ones that we see they are very popular in ufology here on Earth. And these reptilians are the ones that you can think of the Illuminati or the dark forces that control Earth. So those lizard-looking reptilians look like this.
Reptilians continue to conquer other systems, most notably.
So then the Draconians, reptilians end up colonizing more star systems, and they end up on Earth, and then they start creating lower versions of themselves, such as the small reptiles that we might see now. And then we see the bigger versions of themselves, which are the dinosaurs, right? And then the dinosaurs get wiped out on Earth. We're talking about a long time ago, during Terra. During that time, Earth was called Terra. So when this was happening, then the dinosaurs pretty much get wiped out, and the reptilians go underground. And so I think about 4 years ago, I saw online this interesting alien encounter with a reptilian female, and this guy pretty much has this encounter with this reptilian female in the woods, and she's able to shapeshift, right? And then she is meeting this human, right? And she looks just like another human, and then she's pretty much breaking the code because these reptilians. So anyway, I think she shapeshifts back into her natural form, which is a reptilian form, and she along the lines reveals that her race is called the Tetra. And I will leave a info, so if you want to watch that over here. Anyway, I don't want to necessarily stay out of topic, but that's just another confirmation about, there's a lot of information about all these underground bases and how there is reptilians in these underground bases. Anyway, that video that I saw about the Tetra reptilian race, they were saying pretty much that they were the first ones here on Earth. That is definitely just another perspective on how there is reptilians underneath the Earth now. So pretty much Devi is saying that moving forward, when these ancient civilizations were being built, such as Lemuria and Atlantis, during that time, the reptilians were still here on Earth, right? And then somehow they infiltrated themselves into the government or officials in Atlantis, and somehow they convinced them that they should go into war with Lemuria. And Lemuria were beings that were really, really spiritual, but they didn't necessarily had big technology. Now again, based on past life regressions, I have the understanding that Lemuria was more of a mother goddess consciousness, and Atlantis was more of a father god consciousness, more of a masculine. They were very advanced, but they were more of a masculine perspective. So somehow the reptilians convinced the Atlanteans that Lemurians were their enemy. And that's when things went down, because there was another war happening here. So moving forward, that's when the Atlanteans go into war with Lemuria. Lemuria were very advanced spiritually, but they didn't necessarily have big technology like the people from Atlantis. So then that's when the war happens, and long story short, Lemuria sinks. So the conclusion is that Lemuria sinks. Now, Lemuria was pretty much holding that torch in spirituality during those times on Earth. So what that created is that they created for the planet and the Earth vibration to lower. And then that's when the reptilians pretty much took over even more of the whole planet, because it was more in a lower frequency. And it's been like this for thousands of years. Okay. Now, a lot of, if not all of this information comes from the AKASHIC records, in a lot of past life regressions. But I want to, whoever's watching this, I want to invite you to just think, how are all these people channeling the same information, okay? All these people going into a trance and doing past life regressions, and even myself going into the AKASHIC records, and indeed feeling, sensing, and seeing all this information as truth. Now if this information resonates with yourself, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. You know, I personally believe in Shakti. Shakti means that. So 2 weeks ago, someone sent me a message asking and saying, well, my information contradicts your information and a lot of people that I'm watching that has the same information as you. And what Shakti means is that all perspectives are valid, okay? The universe is so big and we are just one little eye, one extension, looking back at the universe, at source energy, and trying to understand what it is. So all perspectives are valid because we are part of this universe. We are part of source energy, okay? There is no right or wrong, okay? We're all trying to understand. And when I found out, when I started working, the whole topic about aliens is such a broad, huge topic. There's so much information if you really dig around, okay, and look for that information. Is there, okay? Our government has been conditioning us to feel more comfortable about other types of beings forever. All these movies constantly conditioning us to, in a way, feel more comfortable of the idea that there is other aliens, other beings, okay, that might not necessarily look like us, you know. And that's a way of how the reptilians get away with a lot of things that they do on Earth. One of the ways they've been avoiding karma and getting away with everything and all the division and chaos and control they've been doing on Earth is by giving us subliminal messages. You know, a lot of these movies have all these subliminal messages, and in a way they tell us what's gonna happen and what's coming. So the law of truth, meaning that when you pretty much reveal the information of what's gonna be, have all these subliminal messages, and in a way they tell us what's gonna happen and what's coming. So the law of truth, meaning that when you pretty much reveal the information of what's gonna happen, pretty much the other, which is us, the humans, have the ability and have the choice to know, you know. So it's not like we're being lied to. So that's a whole other topic about subliminal messages in movies, in music, on and on and on, whatever. You know, I'm not really here to talk about the reptilian control and all of that. There's plenty of videos that you can watch about that. So in conclusion, there is a lot of information about our galactic history, okay? There is many information online about past life regressions where they talk about all this. I myself have experienced a lot of this information just by going into the records. And I do feel and know that there's something better to come to Earth with the 5D and us ascending into the 5D. I do believe that we are ascending, and this video is just to create that community and know that we're here, you know, we're watching, we're learning, you know. These are some of the alien beings have been assisting Earth for a long time. We have the Lyrans. the Pleiadians, the Syrians, and the Arcturians. My dearly hearted soul family. Quantum hack. Think about this for a second. Not believing in aliens is like taking a spoonful of water from the ocean and looking at the spoon and saying, there are no whales in the ocean. There are no sharks in the ocean. Because when you're looking at your spoon, you don't see any.